Well, let's just say drafted, well drafted. I spent quite a bit of time on it just because so much of it was, just new and I wanted to know in depth what is in every line item. So it was a really good exercise to go through. So, good plan.
All right, so we've got everyone. And it is right at 6, so let's go ahead and start the meeting. Any additions or approval to the agenda? Or changes? Nothing? All right, then we'll move on. No visitors to be heard. So we'll go on to approving minutes, and it looks like we have one from a while ago too. I probably signed it and didn't get it to you maybe.
Oh, that was the one
Or-
Sailor was gone, and so I went
Oh,
back and
okay.
watched the video and. Oh, have a motion to approve the agenda.
Oh, we still have, I'm sorry.
Thank
Can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion.
I'll second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to the minutes. So there's 2 sets of minutes. Can we do both at the same time and approve them as one? Okay. So let's, whenever you guys want, after you've read them, we'll approve both at the same time.
I was able to review them on the thing, so I'll motion to approve
Okay.
both as written. I'll second.
Okay? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, moving on to reports, the Park and Rec Director report. So Christie.
You bet. I do not have copies for you. It's a pretty short update, so I saved on paper. So, just a few updates. We have flag football and soccer underway, so we've had 2 Saturdays already, and from my understanding, it's going very well. That'll be through October 4th. So again, just a reminder, we have 135 for flag football and 100 for soccer. So off to a good start. For upcoming programming, I'll be having a survey. I've got it drafted, just kind of making some adjustments to that, but for additional ideas, I want to generate that feedback as to other recreation programs, not only for youth, but also for the summer rec side and for adults as well. So that will be going out hopefully by the end of this month, and we'll be able to get that feedback so that it can really direct our programming and our conversations here to see how we want to move forward. So, and facility and grounds updates, just continuing mowing and string trimming. I guess we had a pretty wet summer, so we were at that longer than some years. Soccer field preparation, getting the nets out there and the spraying all done. We did a second round of Roundup application for that prairie habitat project over at Boynton and Juniper. Continuing with weed control. At the big field, we did have some repair and maintenance recently in the last week and a half or so. So repairing both some areas at the batter's box and pitching areas, and then they cut just a small strip along the edge where the infield meets the outfield, where there was kind of a lip that was happening with the anchor line. So that was done yesterday. So that looks really good. And moving a couple of sprinkler heads. There were also a couple toilets repaired in the parks, and I don't know if you noticed, but there were 3 more ash trees that were taken down as well from the emerald ash borer. Hit them pretty hard. There was good signs of that, so we had those taken down. That was probably about 2 weeks ago. Bandshell and Museum, those updates are all complete. Looking really really good. They got the paint done a few weeks ago there and some of the final touches on the museum as well. And a big thanks to LBSA for the repainting of the bleachers at the softball middle fields, as well as doing some hooks. Was there anything else at the dugouts at the T-ball fields? The hooks there, and they spent Saturday afternoon for a couple hours doing that. So big thank you to LBSA. Upcoming, just a few things operationally and administration wise. I've been spending a lot of time on the 2026 budget in the last couple of weeks since we've met. I'll be soon reviewing some of our different policies to see what we might want to discuss here as a group, if there's any changes that would be needed, here coming up. And then I'll be looking into the South Dakota Urban and Community Forestry Grant that we had received. When was the last time we applied for and received that? Okay, a couple years ago. So hoping to get some of that and try to do some replacement for some of the trees that have come down. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, then, with no questions, let's move on to the new business, the 2026 budget recommendation.
All right, in your packet, you would have received 4 different budgets. I just thought it would be kind of easier on the eyes to look at it that way. So I'll just kind of go through, give some general highlights one by one, allow for any questions that you might have. If I don't know them, refer to Nate. But the first one is that Recreation 201 program, it's titled on the top. It should have been first in the packet. That one is front and back, so we've got the revenue on the front and the expenses on the back side there. Just a reminder, this is the budget where it's recreation programming, where the expenses are most closely related directly to the programs as possible. So really the goal of this budget is to have the programs be able to, our program fees can cover the costs as much as possible. That would be the goal here. Another note, so if you look at the expenditures, each, we've got volleyball, softball, soccer, each of the program activities are separated out into a line item, but they're not their own budget, right? Like the entire 201 recreation budget is all combined into one, is how we're looking at that. So there are some expenses, for example, for, let's just say, softball and baseball. There are other expenses that aren't just in that line item for those sporting activities, that are within other line items that are then need to be covered for the program as a whole. So some of those things might be professional services, what we pay the umpires, for example, some of the repairs and maintenance, the credit card fees through Sports Engine, and those sorts of things. I didn't really have anything much to point out on this budget. This isn't one of the budgets where we have, discretionary park board funds or anything. So I would just open it up if you have any questions on here.
On the 2025, there's like a group insurance that isn't on the other budgets.
Mm-hmm.
What is that for?
So all of those, so the salary and wages all the way down to group insurance are staffing costs and associated costs with staffing. So with my new position, helping to cover the group insurance costs for that. A portion of. Which you'll see show up in other budgets as well. Good question.
So based on this, I see maybe the professional, did you say professional services?
Mm-hmm.
Was salary, or was you as well?
So professional services would be, things like different subscriptions, or potentially if we need to have, pay a professional to come in and help with X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
That's what that line item would be.
Cause that's quite a bit lower, is that something that there might be expense out of yet?
For
Or-
this year, no, and I have a email out to Tyson on this, he's been gone for the last couple days, but I asked that very question of him earlier today and haven't heard back, but 2023 and 2024, yeah, it was over that. I don't know do you know what would be in that?
I wouldn't expect
Yeah.
anything big.
Okay,
This
I
year.
was just
It doesn't
curious.
have any big programs this year.
Any other questions there?
No, I don't have anything.
With the soccer expense,
Mhm.
is that just like more kids, more uniforms type stuff? Because that's like a pretty decent jump over there. I'm just trying to figure out, because
We had to buy new nets, right?
that would make sense then.
Yeah.
I mean, the
We had the new
one
big
big
net,
set.
yeah.
Those are expensive. Okay.
Mhm.
I just wasn't sure.
Yeah. We had more kids this year, so for fall soccer, every kiddo gets a soccer ball.
Yeah.
Which the registration fee covers for a lot of that, but that would be an additional expense as well. But yeah, that soccer net, which was much needed for that older age group, they were playing with one of those little ones where they
Oh,
stood in
yeah.
there, they about
100%.
covered the whole thing, so that worked out good. Yeah, that would probably be the biggest chunk of that.
You look on the revenue too, it's quite a bit higher.
Yeah.
I did add for other, so on the revenue side, other charges, $1,500 in new programming. It's hard to know, and we don't have our upcoming year panned out quite yet, or what we can still do yet this winter on this side of the year as well, but, did put in a placeholder for that.
And it looks like the summer rec came in under our fees brought in, right? So that was one of our newer things.
Yeah, and that's something we'll just have to make sure that we're revisiting and aligning really what the true costs are, not just the direct, program costs, but as mentioned, each of these, other pieces that, what it takes to really make a successful summer rec program and make sure that we're trying to recoup some of those costs too, with registration fees.
Okay? Anyone else have anything on that one? Okay,
Okay, so moving on to the Recreation General Fund, 2026 budget. Give me a second to get there. Again, the portion of the staffing and associated costs up above with the first several line items. Moving on down the line, there's, certain things like in rentals, for example, that would be the porta potties that we have 3 throughout the town, to help support our rec activities. We've got that repair and maintenance line, utility bills, and then that improvement other than, that cutoff there, it's improvement other than buildings. That's where the discretionary funding had come in. So for the 2025 budget, that was the batting cage, our support of that in partnership with LBSA. And then for 2026, I don't yet have an estimate on the netting system, but per our last meeting, that was kind of the direction that this group wanted to go, was to consider, that. I put in that placeholder of $8,000. And again, I don't have that estimate back. It's taken a little bit. I thought that T had used that same netting system and was trying to get with them, and they haven't yet gone to that yet. So I'm gonna do a little bit more investigation and research into that, but.
Okay. Anything on that? All right. Next.
Okay, the park general fund. Nothing major to point up here, of course, you know, we've got the staffing, the contracts and subscriptions would be things like if we had the tree removal. Repairs would be mower maintenance, you know, at D&D or other places, ACE, items at ACE for repairs and other vendors. Supplies would include spray, parts, and consumables there. And then that improvement other than buildings, that line item, we can go through that in a little bit more detail. I kind of have another sheet because this is where we spent a lot of our time at our last park meeting, was to look at some of the things where we want to focus our energies on. And so within that $20,000 for the $20,000 for the 2026 budget, that includes about $1,000 for the safety net at the playground, at the softball field there. $2,000 for a bench, a couple benches and trash cans at West Evergreen Park. $1,500 for the horseshoe area to be redone. I threw in $750 for artwork. I did hear back from the art teacher, they are not able to, they just don't have, they have a lot of kids who are involved with many other activities, and so they don't have a lot of extra time, so we'll have to figure out how to make that happen, but wanted to keep that in there. The T-ball field, the shed, the purchase of materials, and the shop class agreed to go ahead and help us with the build of that, which is great. I heard back from him a couple days ago. And then I did keep in there, I know that this group had recommended and was hopeful to have the sand redone at West Evergreen, and that wasn't yet in this year's budget. If we can't fit it in this year's budget, I did include that within that $20,000 in that line item as well. And then there's $3,000 for gravel at the campgrounds. They're hoping to redo where the gravel is, and then at each of the campsites have a little padded gravel area there as well, so. What's not included that has kind of come up in conversation that we're trying to get some estimates on yet is the resurface of the basketball court. That wasn't like a priority of this group when we met last month, but it was mentioned in our walkthrough, so that's something that we're just kind of keeping on our radar. I'm not sure that it's gonna happen for this funding, you know, this upcoming funding cycle, but, and then the bathrooms at the campgrounds, I don't know that we had gone there for our walkthrough, but those are in need of some definite maintenance and some potential rehaul there, so. But again, that is not included within that 20,000 here, so.
I think something else we had talked about was, when Jason was here, was the, helping with maybe the turf of the batting cages too, or coming up with that?
So we.
Or were they gonna do that and we were gonna do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
and we found turf, we just gotta figure out how we're gonna get it installed, so.
Okay,
Other than that, I think we dropped off a check with somebody today for turf, so.
okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
Is the revenue for the campground on here somewhere? What does that number look like?
Me, can you answer that one?
Again, most years it's gonna be between 10 and 15,000, this year it's been way down,
Okay.
maybe 6,000. There's a number of assumptions we can make about why that could be, but my gut says because we don't have very well defined paths, and I do think the bathrooms are a challenge.
Was there like one big thing on the repairs and maintenance? Cause that one's way over. And I'm just curious.
17,000.
Oh, yes, there was a large outstanding bill from the year prior, some electrical work that
Okay.
happened at the tennis courts with the
Okay, anything else? And thanks for putting some of that, like getting the quotes on it, cause we didn't really know what that would cost or anything. We liked the idea of it, but
Right.
we had no clue
Mhm.
what number
Mhm.
to look at or to go for. So.
Absolutely. And like
That's
I
great.
said, I tried to get what I could. There's still some I haven't yet heard back from, so keep you updated. And then lastly, the pool budget. This one is quite straightforward as well. I do have in the professional services an addition of one more video camera. I got a quote from Foss. He came out this last summer just to quote that out, but our video footage does not at all, you cannot see very well. It's very granulated in the deep end. And I think it's important that we're able to kind of make sure to have eyes on that. So that is included in that, as well as just, kind of regular yearly amounts to be projected. And then the other thing to note would be under repairs and maintenance. You'll see kind of that jump there. We feel like it's going to be a wise decision to have both the circulation pump and the play feature pump, to have an extra one on hand, so that if it goes out, we're not waiting anywhere between 5 to 10 days for that to come in and potentially having to close the pool down for that long. So that's about $6,300 of that is what the quote is for that.
And then the repairs and maintenance, that covers the fixing of the handicap chair and everything?
Yes. I'm told that this group, can, if there's any changes that you want to discuss, but whatever's recommended to the city council, there's a whole process that will happen, and this very well could change, after it moves forward to council. So, but just wanting to get a recommendation and approval of this group to bring it forward to the council.
Having gone a year now with the concessions of how we did it, did that work out? How did that?
I'm super glad you mentioned that, because I forgot to hit that in my highlights. It worked. A lot of the feedback I got, both verbally and anecdotally from people, and then even a little bit on the survey, that people appreciated having, some of the high school rec assistants there helping out. When I looked at this year's net revenue and last year's net revenue, they were both really close to each other. And last year was $540 net, and this year was $574 net. In 2023, it was $3,700, and I'm assuming that there was a tournament probably that was hosted that we were able to do
We
concessions
did.
at.
Yep, the Prairie League hosted 10U
Okay.
tournament that year.
So I'm hoping to have additional discussion to see, how we can make another tournament happen here, what we need to do to try to get our name out there for our facility use. I'm hoping to maybe contact LBSA to see if there's interest in a partnership there. For example, maybe if they want to help with some of the setup of the tournament and take gate fees, and we can help with the concession side, or, things like that, so that we can try to work on that revenue again, but, yeah.
When the amateur hosted their regions or their league tournament here this year, does any of that revenue come back?
Which one?
It would have been like the Dirt
The
Devils.
amateur league?
Yeah,
No.
no.
That we considered doing concessions there, but when we looked at how we were doing on what it costs to get the additional, and we were already kind of weeding ourselves down on the inventory, and to try to guess at what that would be, we didn't want to be overspending and not knowing what to expect. So I think that was probably a wise decision. But we did have them purchase some of our leftover inventory for their use, and they were able to open the concession. So we were able to recoup some of that leftover inventory, so I think that was
Okay.
a win-win situation, so.
Alright,
I feel like we talked about this last time, but is the master park plan, is that budgeted somewhere to be able to do that? That's already somewhere else.
I think that was put on hold.
for,
I think it's for
This year it was put on
Yeah,
hold.
2026.
to maybe hopefully do it next year, I think.
Yeah, right now we've got that budgeted in the second penny fund.
Yes, that's
Come
right,
out of-
okay,
Out of that one instead of all the recreational funds.
perfect.
And if we have any major pieces of equipment, you know, the pool pumps, that's something we probably could put on second penny as well. Mowers, those kinds of things, come out of those as capital equipment, so we're setting that fund up to serve us as a capital equipment fund. So when we need vehicles, you know, we need an ambulance next year, we need a police vehicle next year. Those all come out of that same fund, so that it's not offsetting other programs and other necessary costs.
Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, does anyone else have anything from the budgets? All right, we'll move on then to the survey results for baseball softball.
We need a formal motion on that to recommend to the council.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I'll motion to recommend to city council.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of recommending that budget?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now we'll move on to the baseball softball survey results.
Perfect. I hope it's not too tiny to read. I'll just kind of hit the highlights here and then we can open it up for any discussion as well. But as you can see on here, we had 34 people respond. Of those, 11 were softball, 19 were baseball, and 13 were t-ball, with the majority of those being baseball t-ball. 11 of the respondents were coaches, and so several of the next following questions were skipped by those that are not coaches, because it was just intended to get feedback from coaches so that we can know that we're bettering our program there as well. So how would you rate your overall experience as a volunteer coach this season? We had 82% say very satisfied or satisfied. How would you rate the condition of the fields? We had 54% say exceeded expectations or met expectations. And of the 45% that said below expectations, 3 of those 5, it really had to do with the amount of field time. And with one, two talking about the grass was too long a couple times. I'm assuming that was maybe t-ball field or maybe
The softball field was long
Okay.
most of the year.
Okay.
Barely ever got mowed.
Okay. And then ruts on the baseball field that hadn't been repaired, and I wasn't aware of that, so is anybody familiar with that?
On the baseball field, I think when they put the lights up over in like,
Oh, and the
on
other
the right
field?
side,
Okay.
right field line, they had the big, boom truck, and I think
Okay.
that created them, but I'm assuming it's the
That's
same.
gotta be that.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean,
I was thinking Brooks.
that's the only thing I can think of.
I mean, I was all over both of those fields. I didn't, there was from the truck.
Yeah,
Actually,
That
got
would
to
make
the-
and it's mostly in
Right.
foul territory, so unless you were walking or running over to get a foul ball, you probably wouldn't notice it.
okay,
Um,
yeah, thanks for adding that.
But I'm thinking that's what it is.
Yeah. How satisfied were you with the support provided by Lennox Parks and Rec program staff? And we had 90% very satisfied or satisfied. What went well for you as a volunteer coach? And we had, and you can kind of see where I say ×2 or ×3. I tried to put them in themes so that it was just easier for y'all to read. But one said able to participate in or practice in Chancellor, otherwise we would have been struggling with lack of facilities. 3 people had mentioned that they were appreciative of the parents and kind of the assistant coaches that helped to step up. And 3 that just said that they really enjoy working with the kids and teaching the love of the game. What could be important for improve for volunteer coaches in future seasons? One that said invest in the girls, such as adequate complex or better, newer uniforms. I'll definitely be looking into the uniforms this year and making sure that we're weeding out any that have passed their good days. More field availability, 2 people had indicated that. One had said that it's difficult to drive to places like Vermillion, so wondered about joining a different league. One had a comment about the process for picking the tournament teams. For example, the coach should still have input. And one, the parent expectations of game behavior before the season starts. Players are overloaded with input from those beyond the coaches, and sometimes hard to even, for the coaches to even, get their message across when there's a lot of commentary, so. A question about the umping. How would you rate your satisfaction with the officiating? There was really only a few this applied to, because there was a lot of, T-ballers that answered and they don't have umps, and then several skipped this question as well. But it seems like for the most part, people were satisfied. There was one that was not satisfied, but otherwise the 2 comments were that they did good or fine, so.
I think there's one, neither satisfied or dissatisfied.
Yeah.
There's one just neutral. I
True,
don't see any
Yeah,
dissatisfied.
true, yes. How satisfied were you with program structure this season? We had 73% very satisfied or satisfied. Around that 20% mark were neutral. And then 6% dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So along on the right there, you'll kind of see the different themes that came out of that. The most being 3 for more field availability, and some 3 with disappointment with the tournament team aspects of things. Couple good comments in there. Program ran great. Coaches were great. Oh, 2 that they prefer the games not to be on weekends. I'm assuming that that's T-ball. They play Sundays. This is a little bit down later, you'll see that, but it came up a few different times where it was confusing for the Lennox teams to be the same color, especially when they played each other. So that was something new, and then 2 people said not enough games. How would you rate your satisfaction with communication from coaches? 80% were either very satisfied or satisfied. And then the 13% that were dissatisfied mainly had to do with just that communication. For example, moving to a different location last minute if they didn't know that there was a game, for example. Maybe they didn't keep up on if there was a game on their field that they were practicing on. Or if there was a weather delay that maybe wasn't communicated fast enough. The next question, my child improved sports skills throughout their time at practices and games, and we had 74% either strongly agree or agree, and then 20% were neutral. And what went well this season, the game schedule done in advance, and the umps were always there. We got one, they liked park staff at the concessions. Good coaching, that was a definite theme. 6 people responded with the appreciation of the coaches. 3 just kind of said nothing stood out, everything was fine. And 5 people, the kids had fun and the children progressed. What could be improved upon? I'm not going to go through all of these, but the communication piece, both from the coaches as well as, I think there was 1 or 2 that said between the city and the families, and that's something that I kind of figured out also through this last soccer season. I found a way that I can I won't get into detail, but on Sports Engine that I can specifically send communication out to groups so that I can let people know that coaches have received their rosters, if you have not heard from them, you know, those sorts of things. So hopefully that'll improve that. The tournament team, difficult to balance. Playing and coaching between the rec and the tournament team. And I think what that means is, you know, each of the kids that are on a tournament team are also on a different rec team. And so those rec teams might be practicing any given day of the week, and then to try to find a time to do a tournament team practice when they're already practicing all on different days. So to try to find that, I think just gets kind of hairy, right? The team colors confusing, again, that came up. Invest in the girls, facilities and equipment, one person had said that. T-ball games on Sundays, a couple people are maybe not so much liking that. Field availability with 4. 2 people had questions about cost and kind of trying to understand, you know, what is all involved with that, with the budgets. And then more times for games and practices, both earlier in the season and throughout the season. So those are just some of the highlights there. In future years, what would make you more likely to purchase items at the concession stand? There wasn't any big wows here, except many of them are, you know, the T-ball ones, they didn't have concessions because they're at the T-ball field. Somebody mentioned, you know, they didn't have many home games or those sorts of things. And then the last question just had to do about their preference of communication in season from the coaches. And by and large, that 96% prefer text messages versus another sort of app or avenue to do that. So, yeah.
I think we have an opportunity for Steve to get one of those like things where you like put around your neck like a box to walk around and sell to people
Yeah.
during games. And
Okay.
say,
Popcorn, peanuts. I'm not,
Wait, Steve or
It
Clint?
was definitely discussed.
I'm not serve safe certified.
Safe serve certified.
Shoot.
yeah, you better add that to
The budget.
Safe certified.
Steve needs to get certified.
Put on gloves. I know that part.
Hair
Other than
You
that,
gotta cover the beard too, so.
Just a
full
body
never
never.
alone that or whatever.
So anything that stood out to you that you either want to discuss now or that we want to put on another agenda, you know, moving forward for a different night?
So when it says more fields and more areas, I mean, and we all know that, but do we have any kind of plan? Or is that just something where we say, we're looking at it in the future? Because right now I know of nothing even walking forward. Like there's no forward motion on anything for fixing that.
I thought that our new map was supposed to be the first step in that direction.
Well, I know when we talked about that, that was for everything, but they weren't gonna put a big focus on fields because of the cost of it, because they didn't know how much they wanted to invest into that.
Well, I think that's what the master plan is gonna tell us. If that's what we come up with, that's where, I mean, I think we're not doing anything right now until we've got a master plan, because it doesn't make sense to put a field somewhere that doesn't match up with a master plan or whatever, but, and then of course there is gonna have to be funding for it, but that's, I think, the reason for the master plan is to put our priorities, or everybody's priorities, this is what we think needs to happen. And then that's where the funding can actually start to be looked at.
Prioritized. The one thing that's on that master plan that they had on the presentation was like looking at the town and the surrounding area and what we have and what could potentially be purchased or whatever, right? For potential spaces that would work.
So I
Just
think
one
if,
thing that had
yeah,
been mentioned.
I think the master plan, once that goes forward, or once it would be a, utilized next year, that's where we would say we want fields or whatever, we would like to have more fields. And then it could be mapped out, planned out where it would be. So maybe in the very short term, that's not.
And there's nothing in the like 2 to 4 year range. Because by what it takes to make a field and stuff, you're looking 5 years out. I mean, it's
Right.
from the city process, it's a slow process. You're 5 years out. I mean, so that's why, you know, people who have kids playing now, they're gonna be out. So we got 5 more years of people saying, you guys are doing nothing for us on that aspect. Cause they've been saying it since I moved here 8 years ago, and still nothing's happening, you know, so I mean, they're gonna say it's been going for 8 years and nothing's happening. It's gonna keep going with nothing happening, unless somebody shows that something's happening.
One thing I wondered, what does this group think about utilizing the T-ball field? It's in my plans to go look at other communities to see, because I'm hearing that, you know, there's some different things you can do to just kind of do a makeshift T-ball field that's just kind of, you know, not much effort, you know, that's gonna go into it, but to utilize the T-ball field for more practices, whether that be for softball or baseball. I do know that from my understanding, when I talked to softball coaches this year, they really like being able to utilize the Chancellor field for that, and that's specific for softball. So I think that's been helpful in terms of practices to be able to have that. But I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts on potentially looking at that and having more of the games? So we had all of 8U baseball on the T-ball fields this year. And from a concession standpoint, I'm thinking that was, I've got
A
this
big
written
chunk
down.
of those.
So 8U ball was, I think it ended up being like 16 nights of, you know, of ball that could have been, you know, over here and more concessions and those sorts of things. But then that would limit then the amount of practices if you have that many more games and people are kicked off for practices. So I'm just trying to think through that a little bit.
I think the other thing that did was that kept them from having to play weekend games. The year before, we played a lot of them on the big field, but we were playing on Friday night, Sunday night, because the field wasn't available. And also, we had more teams that had that year too. So
The league
it's just,
scheduled them on those nights, or?
yeah,
Oh,
like 2 years ago, we were playing on
Okay.
Sunday night, Friday night sometimes.
I didn't realize that.
And I think why they moved all those to the T-ball field was so that we could get them all in
Okay.
during the week.
So I have, there shouldn't be a reason why we can't. So like the T-ball field is bigger than a high school softball field size. So the high school could play all their home games there. So it's not, a softball field doesn't have to be any bigger than that.
Sure.
We could revitalize that and make that a nice field, because we don't have the drainage issues of anywhere else with the other fields. And so we could actually have one nice softball field in town so then we could say, yeah, we got a nice baseball field and a nice softball field. You know, that would be something to think about.
I think the biggest issue over there would be parking.
We got the spot along the side.
Yeah.
I was like, I was just out there looking, and so the amount of parking we have now over there would be the same over there if we parked along the side, because there isn't a lot of parking at the softball field either, unless you go back into the campground, but,
Not an entire parking lot.
unless you go into the campground parking, but
But
I think you would get, for the people that show up to the softball games, and I've been to more softball games here than probably anybody, there's plenty of parking, because it's not filling up the house. It's parents and grandparents, the only people that show up.
it's really close to the road too. I
It's
think.
not any closer, that's what I'm saying, you put up a net,
There's
you'd have to do a net, but I'm just saying, possible
On the
improvement.
T-ball field, you've got the dugout and you've got like a sidewalk and then it's the road. At the softball field, you've got that large area of fence,
Yeah, you just,
Tree
but you'd have
line.
to put up a net.
but that's not the same space, is what I'm saying.
No, it's different, but different is not always bad.
I'm not saying it's
Just
not.
saying, I was, it sounded
I'm
like.
telling you that it's not the same amount of space.
No,
from
I'm just saying the
that
field, the
standpoint.
field itself, not the outside, the field itself is all you need.
When you
to play
put the snow fence up or whatever you're talking,
Right,
it's the same
it would
size.
fit inside of that. So the snow fence would go up inside of, like that fence is actually bigger than what we play on. So the inside part.
And, yeah, so I'm saying the road right next to it.
Well, no, the other one
That's
has, the
what
other
I-
one has more space, yes. More non-playing space, yes. I was just talking playing space. So I mean, it would work, but it just depends if that was what somebody wanted to do. Just thought.
What would be needed to make it like a nice softball field?
Just put sprinklers in. I don't know if it has sprinklers. If it doesn't, put sprinklers in and just do the grass. Everything else, you could play on it. You put nets up and sprinklers. I'll go mow it. I don't care. And it would be 10 times better than what we're playing on now. Because the outfield is so bad in that softball field, people roll their ankles all the time because the crabgrass clumps is awful. We had multiple girls last year during our high school season roll their ankles out in the outfield. It's just, it's not a flat surface. It's like running in a pasture. So I mean, it's not nice.
Any other thoughts?
How doable is that?
We can definitely do some investigation, you know, we can have that be on the agenda for a future meeting. I think it's good to get some ideas out on the table so we kind of know what we want to work on. I can spend some work doing some, you know, asking around, talking to, you know.
I think the dugouts would probably need to be bigger too.
The dugouts are the
No,
same
dugouts,
size.
yeah, the
Actually,
same
they're
exact.
bigger
The
than
duck-
the
yeah,
Little League
they are,
dugouts,
yeah.
because Nick
Okay.
and I measured out for every hook, so we put them every
Okay.
12 inches, and
Yeah,
there was more.
I'm just-
We actually had games there when we had flooding. We had 12U and 14U games and stuff there, and it actually worked better than at the softball field. So minus lights, sprinklers, and nets would
That's
be
what I was just gonna ask about lights.
the,
it's a
unless you
problem.
scheduled your games during the day. And
Let's daylight for
So-
so late in the summer.
right, well, but even in the spring, like there's high school teams that have to have their games earlier because they don't have lights in their fields.
Lights are expensive.
So, right, they are very expensive.
You know, so that'd be one of the things, if that's one of the things that goes into the mix, I would think that we'd wanna make sure that we're knowing what that master park plan, right, to know before we put large dollar amounts into different field arrangements and those sorts of things too, but, and that field currently exists, so I don't know, I'm just trying to like think through in terms of this is the amount of teams we have playing across all of the different programs that we have. That doesn't necessarily add another field, so I'm
No,
just
it's
trying
just
to
they
think
invest in
through.
girls' sports part.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm
like
just,
you were saying, if you could figure, if you could figure out, more.
Makeshift
A makeshift.
T-ball, like at the old football field or something.
On the football field, you could, so I measured it out, you can have 3 in just one half of the football field in the end zone area, you could put 3 infields of just aggregate line infields as a temporary infield. You could have 3 different practice areas that had enough space in them, and so you could have 3 teams practicing with bases, with everything. You don't have outfield, but you don't need outfield in T-ball.
Then we don't have a
soccer.
during the
If we
fall.
put
Right,
air
but,
line
and so that's what I'm.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So,
But, yeah, cause I
So-
think that that's what I was kinda wondering too, like, what could we set up
So,
for
yeah, you-
T-ball
you
so
could
that
do
it's,
that.
something that wouldn't necessarily then impact this, you know, the soccer program, but something where it could be usable and playable, you know, if needed and, but.
Cause I still don't know why fall soccer couldn't be at the extra practice football field that they use in the spring. Cause junior high football doesn't practice Saturday
Mhm.
mornings. That
Oh,
field is open,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Is it just putting them
I
in
think-
the nets?
What's the,
That could be.
so in the spring, we usually move it over there because of the water, right?
That's
my
why we went over the
understanding.
first time.
Yeah.
because we had those wet years and they couldn't even get games in.
So you'd have to move nets every week
Weekend,
or weekend, yeah.
yeah, that might.
And we'd have to just make sure that it's okay. I don't think it would tear up the field any And like the football team's tearing it up more than the little soccer kids would, so I don't think that would be a big deal.
And those little guys don't tear it up too bad.
Right.
either, So it doesn't get,
And I think it'll be good for me just to have more conversations with coaches to understand what those challenges were with practices, because, you know, when we first start the year, I mean, everybody has an opportunity to have one, if not two practices. It seems like it's an ample amount and there's space for that. My assumption would be then once games begin, right, then when they're, you know, the fields are being used, then those practice times get kicked off, and it's difficult to then have practices through as you're, you know, trying to get some skills in between games so that you're learning from, so that is that, I'm seeing nods, so that is where the hang up is.
Yeah, because
is
then
during.
if there's games like T-League plays every Monday and Wednesday night, and you have a Monday or Wednesday night
Mhm.
practice,
Right,
you don't get a practice every
Yeah.
week.
yeah,
I know my daughter's team too did run into, actually, at the beginning before games starting, I think there was 2 nights that we were supposed to practice, but the high school team had a game. So we kind of ran into a conflict there.
Mhm.
Had to either move it later or a different day,
Sure,
or
yeah.
I can't remember exactly,
Yeah.
but.
Okay.
and on the, if we wanted to, if you guys think, or if we want to make improvements, I know I've been talking to Nicola, and we have quite a few grants that we're looking at for money for girls' sports. So if we wanted to do something with the city, we could get a majority of it covered under that with the grants that we're looking at, but we need to know if that's something people are willing to go forward with, so then we can put our legwork on the other end, because it's a lot of legwork on our end to do that, so so we can bring it up, and I mean, that's one of those deals, you can't push it off until forever either, so.
I just think it might be worth, I know you're talking about until we get the master park plan, and I agree with that, but is this something that could hold us over for 5 years?
Right, figure out
Knowing
that
it's-
short term.
Exactly, a short-term solution
Mhm.
to show we're trying
Mhm.
while something
Mhm.
bigger is discussed.
Yeah.
And I know we've mentioned the Chancellor Field too.
Mhm.
Was that something that was kind of like, oh, it's available, but you just kind of reach out, or did we have like regular routine practices scheduled there, and or could we use it for games?
I asked that question, so I think, Zeeler, did you give me the point of contact over there?
Casey,
Yeah, to Casey, and so it was a little bit into the, you know, the start of practices earlier on, but reached out and he's like, it's open, come use it when you want, and, you know, those sorts of things. So I think having a conversation earlier with him, but I did ask if there would be potential for games. The answer was, we could go to, you know, their board to, you know, see what that would be, but I didn't get the feeling that would be, or it could be an option as well, I think, too. I don't know, I have not been over there, what's the,
He worked on it all summer, and by the end, it was in much better shape than
Okay.
it was with the first couple
Yeah.
of practices. But
yeah,
I mean, he wants to invest his time there. He's made that very clear to me that he's more than willing to do so. So if we could get games there, that would be
Yeah.
a good solution too.
Yeah,
Or
it's-
even like scheduled practices, so
Yeah.
it's not
Right.
kind of like a last minute reach out type of thing.
I
yeah,
think by
Like,
the
there
end
was-
of the season, we had 3 or 4
Yeah.
nights out there.
There was a
where
few
were
coaches that had
scheduled.
scheduled
Yep.
practices.
I know Scott Meyer did, he had
Yep.
every practice there, and
We
a couple
did.
others, you guys did most of yours there too.
And
But
I
yeah, I
think-
think having that conversation earlier on so that we can figure out what that partnership is like and have, you know, kind of some established,
Yeah.
The
Maybe
other
like
thing,
between that, you know, the Chancellor Field and kind of getting an agreement worked out, and then maybe seeing, you know, kind of like Clint was saying, and using the T-ball field for more softball use, and then, you know, finding another T-ball spot, that might, I mean, that would open up a couple fields, you
Yeah.
know?
On that note, I also had a meeting with, some folks at the Worthing City Hall and discussed some field usage there. We were able to sign and get 2 nights, for an hour and a half or something on one of their fields, and so we can try to maybe continue conversation with them on that as well, too.
that's what
I
I was
mean,
gonna
and-
say, because there was a lot of, I mean, there was hard feelings, I think, because Worthing didn't have teams, but we can't do anything about that. But now their field's not being used, because I think they only had maybe 3 teams total. and some of their kids are coming here,
Mhm.
and so it would make sense if we could work out an agreement,
They
like you
have
said.
existing, you know, in the
Mhm.
district,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
we can continue those conversations and see what options, so we can come back together as a group and, yeah.
And off of that, it just popped in, but the softball field, the way it is now, you could have two smaller fields in it. Home plates adjacent from each other, and you could have two T-ball teams. There's a lot of towns that have old baseball fields that they turn into two T-ball fields. And they do that all the time. So center field then would be home plate, the deep center field. If then you made the T-ball field better, type thing, you know. Then you'd gain a field, because that softball field's huge.
And I'm assuming that's why T-ball's on Sunday, or on the weekend too, is there's no lights, so you gotta get it played. You can't play it when parents are working, so, I'm just going by, there's lights at the softball field now, but I suppose you could just turn those on if you needed to.
Yep.
If you had two T-ball fields, and that would get them by
Yeah, it would,
till 8.
yeah, it would light the whole thing up.
Whatever,
Yep.
but.
Okay, we can definitely put this on a future meeting as well, so. Anything else on the survey that stood out or you wanted to make sure we could talk about?
I'm glad they like our umpires.
Yes.
Those kids do a good job.
Yeah.
They really do.
Just related to, since we're talking about baseball, softball, the thing I just remembered, I read on one of the minutes from last time was just LBSA potentially being like a recurring standing item or recurring report, or I don't know how it's labeled in
One-
these minutes, but like a
Yeah.
recurring visitor, I'm not sure.
They talked about showing up once a month, someone other than Sailor, to provide, you know,
Yeah,
if that's something we
updates.
wanted.
Well, especially if we're gonna talk about this, we should make sure they're
Yeah.
invited.
Because this would be good conversations, and then like updates on like, oh, you know, they finished the painting of the benches, so that's
Yes.
good to know, so we
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
And any other projects that are in works, whether we're done with something or they're done with something, kind of check.
Yeah, I think we can definitely look at that just to see what the frequency makes sense to do so, depending on how heavy of it, you know, what time it is that something would come up, but also even just for me as a staff member to make sure that we're in continued communication, even outside of the meetings, and trying to keep each other, you know, up to speed, and just kind of have that partnership there and try to determine, okay, what items need to come to this group and have your time as well, so we can definitely have those conversations with them too, so.
Okay. Anything else? Or are we ready to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.